With the Neo Egoist League finally over, I'm going to be creating the perfect blue lock starting 11 for the upcoming U20 World Cup. The 11 players who you would want on a team, I'll be going over the best formation for offense, defense, and chemical reactions using the top 23 players from the Neo Egoist League. This is one of the most debated topics in the community, so I want to go over what my starting 11 would be, who I'm putting where, the reasons why, as well as how the formation would work. Because you can't simply put every strong player on the field and call it a day, you gotta factor in chemical reactions, who can play with who, and other strategies. A starting 11 requires all of that. I made a video like this almost a year ago, so it's super outdated by now. Lots of changes, lots of new characters, so let's get into it. Firstly, we have to put every character in their positions, and then I'll explain the formation and strategy as we go along. Starting off with a free spot on the bingo card, it's gonna be Gagamaru in the goalkeeper. Gagamaru is easily the best candidate for the spot, not only because our other goalkeeper is hot garbage, but because he is the GOAT in this position. He has a perfect weapon for it. With his reflexes and physique, this guy is literally Luffy, because how can he stretch and block some of these shots? The blocks this man has had, especially throughout the NEL, have been so clutch, considering there's only 3 goals allowed. So there was multiple times where the other team could have scored and won if Gagamaru didn't come in clutch. He's called Gagamaru for a reason. Also, he's literally the only goalkeeper to block more than 2 shots. An irreplaceable character, a free spot on the bingo. If you're putting anyone but Gagamaru in the goalkeeper position, you're pretty much throwing the game. No further explanation needed. Moving on to our center backs, our defensive line. This puts up more of a debate than Gagamaru. You might need the tinfoil hat for this one because a lot of people can be put here. You have some obvious choices like Aiku, Ryu, and Nico, but some other characters like Raichi, Ryo, and even Kunigami can also be here. Going through each character, Aiku is probably the best overall defender, having good physicality and metavision. Ryu has good physicality but lacks metavision, and Nico lacks physicality but has metavision. Raichi has been pretty good throughout the NEL, especially during the Ubers game where he blocked Snuffy. His stamina and defense have been super helpful. Granted, stamina has been kind of redundant in Blue Lock, like somehow Isagi has been running up and down the field the whole game. This guy is Captain America, so we have to take that into consideration when talking about Raichi. But Ryo is kind of the jack of all trades. We saw him defend during the U20 using Chameleon. This would be a good choice if we're not including Nagi. And Kunigami is the new challenger. I mean, he got turned into a defender for this game and shut down Shido almost completely. Arguably, this might be a better feat than what Raichi has done, which is almost stop Snuffy in terms of just marking someone. So there is a lot of debates, pros and cons for who you can put in the defense. For now though, I'm gonna pick Aiku as a center back. He's no doubt the best defender in Blue Lock, and he has every single weapon from every player. His physique can cover high ground as well as take on players head on. Combined with his metavision for field reading, you got one of the best players built for defense and intercepting the ball. Aiku's clutch factor has to be talked about as well. During the U20, there was so many saves from Aiku where he comes out of left field. A prime example of this is him teleporting to block Nagi's shot during Ubers. Aiku is literally the gold standard for what you want in a defender. Now for the second center back, I'm gonna go with Ryu. When you have Aiku who has both physique and metavision, he lacks a little bit more on the physique. So it makes more sense to have Ryu who can cover those spots more rather than having Nico. Marking players, dueling them in height battles, and also using his long legs to get clutch saves. So for the starting 11, I've decided on Ryu and Aiku here in the center back position. Plot twist though, I'm gonna be including 3 center backs in this formation, so now we can have one more between Raichi, Ryo, Kunigami, and also Nico. Dumbing it down though, for me personally, I think this is a debate between Raichi and Kunigami, simply because I want more man-to-man defending in this formation. I know we're lacking a little bit of metavision, but we do have Aiku, and apparently forwards like Isagi and Rin somehow play defense too. Also, metavision isn't really a worry for this formation, which I'll explain with my other picks. But Raichi and Kunigami have both proven to be good on marking people. However, I think I'm gonna put Raichi here simply because of his stamina and the fact that he's meant to be a defender. I think these 3 center backs contain a lot of clutch potential, which is what you want on defense. You have a whole variety where Aiku can read the field, Ryu can win height battles and physique battles, and Raichi can mark any aces, basically ruining any team's chances of an offense. Alright, with all the center backs out of the way, let's move on to to the next position I want to include in my formation, which is defensive midfielder. There's a pretty decent amount of characters you can put here. Kunigami can easily be put here for the same reasons as center back. The fact that he can mark players, move the ball upfield, as well as even be a surprise attack option if you need it. Rayo can also fit here, but to be honest, Rayo can literally fit in every single position. He has feats in every position and weapons for each one, but I think a perfect candidate for defensive midfielder has to be Karasu. He's been consistently good at this position during the U20s. Stalling players, defending, pretty much doing what a CDM should do. He does his job well. During the PXG game, this was even more evident. We see him going up against Kaiser and Isagi, using his new metavision to defend as well. So the lack of metavision with those center backs also gets covered with Karasu, so I think this makes for an insane defensive line. You also have the fact that Karasu can always move up the field and help on offense if needed. We've seen him always be good at hitting passes like to Charles or just simply getting the ball up. Karasu kind of beats any other defensive midfielder like Rayo or Kunigami too. Even though it is close, his metavision and consistency I think is something you'd want in a starting 11. Alright, so to recap our defensive line a little bit, Gagamaru as goalkeeper, Ryu, Aiku, and Raichi as center backs, and Karasu as defensive midfielder. I think this is a mix between physical defending with Ryu, Raichi, and Aiku, and then good game reading with Karasu and Aiku, just overall covering a lot of places for defense like I said before. Moving up the field and to our midfielders, now I think there's pretty much one confirmed option here, and that's Hiyori. This guy is pretty much the only midfielder in Blue Lock and the best at it too. He's pretty much the Gagamaru at this position. The two games we saw him during the NEL, it was him just getting past Ubers and PXG. How this guy dribbled through the best defensive team multiple times, I don't know. His passes are insane, rivaling Itoshi Sai's level of passes, and also give him metavision to top it all off. Yeah, there's pretty much no stopping this man. Center midfielder is probably the best spot for Hiyori, just so he has so many passing options to people in front of him or to the sides of him. It just makes sense to put Hiyori here. When he passes, he challenges people with his passes. Basically, plot-wise, it makes sense so he can evolve people, pretty much Timu Itoshi Sai. So yeah, Hiyori is built different. It's sort of a throw not to have him as a midfielder up here, but now I'm gonna include one more center midfielder. I think this would open a lot of options for chemical reactions. For example, you can have Rayo and include Nagi as your attacking option, or opt for Corona, who has really fast short passes, who can also use the planet hotline with Isagi if you're including him. If Kiora ends up making it through as well, you can have him be a mix-up with the borderline, but I think the only option that makes sense is including Rayo here. Unless you're the #1 Kiora Glazer, there is literally 0 point in not having Rayo here. Even with his quote-unquote fall-off, which isn't even his fault, it's more just Nagi falling off, he is still performing well, as we can see with his assist to Chigiri during Barcha versus Manshine. Combine his metavision, which we said was lacking earlier, the fact that he can copy Rin and Sai to move upfield, it's pretty much a done deal for Rayo as a midfielder. This video is made before chapter 297, and I'm expecting Rayo to have some sort of evolution, so it's probably a good idea to have an evolved Rayo into your starting 11. Another reason why I'm having two midfielders here as well is if you're including Itoshi Sai in this formation, he'd easily replace Rayo. I'm not going to include him just yet. I don't think he's going to play for the U20, but if he did, you'd have both him and Hiyori playing as midfielders. So with Rayo and Hiyori as our center midfielders, that leaves our offensive line. Now, this is the fun part where we can get really creative here, including wingers, attacking midfielders, having our formation built around one player, or just multiple attacking options. There is a lot of things you can do, and this is really where it depends on your personal taste on who you want to put where. This is literally why starting 11 is such a debate, because there are so many good options and everyone has their own takes on it. So I'm gonna go through each position one by one. I want to include a left winger here, and this is probably the biggest debate simply because of how many players can contend for this position. You have Nagi, who is bound to get some development soon, and he can combo with Rayo, who is in the midfield, as well as he is just an amazing offensive option. We can't forget his plays, even though he is on a downfall right now. You also have Chigiri on the left side with his 44 Panther snipe, as well as his speed is just a good weapon in general to have overall for offense, either getting the ball up through that left side or just be a new attacking option. Bachara can also be up for debate for this spot with his dribbling and passes, either supporting the team or getting through on his own. Even if barou can be here, devouring the rest of his team. He has a left goal zone as well and has scored a lot during the NEL. If you really want to mix it up, a wild card can even be Toya, who recently just got past a master striker and scored a super goal on him. You also have Karasu for their team up. So as you can see, there are so many options you can put in this position. I'm finding it really hard to fit one single player in this position. I think depending on the situation, you can put anyone here and it'd work. Nagi, if he gets his development, can go back to being that constant offensive threat. Chigiri has been consistently really good and scored a ton of goals in Munchen. Bachara has no explanation needed. He is carrying a Barca on his back, and having his kit on the wings can extend your attacking options by so much with his dribbling and passes. Barou is just a huge scoring option. However, I think he'd fit more as a forward with his team fully supporting him. So I'm gonna remove him from this spot for now. And Toya, debatably, you can actually put him here. Did I ever imagine a world where this can happen? And not really, but he did just pull off one of the best feats, and his off the ball can be helpful for another attacking option. However, even with all of that, I think for the left winger spot, I'm gonna put Chigiri here. Now, there is a lot of good reasoning behind this. Chigiri has been a very good scoring option, and putting him further up just gives him more opportunities to use his left side 44 Panther snipe to farm goals. I'm also putting Rayo on the left side for this formation. We just saw their chemical reaction in Munchen. I also think Chigiri's speed is just something you want on your team to support your attack. Now that he's trained in Munchen and brought his stamina up, he can bring the ball upfield and just own that left side. Now, I know a popular position is to put Chigiri on left back so that you can have another scoring option like barou up here. I just think Chigiri has really proven himself and been super consistent. Chigiri also works well with other players too, unlike someone like barou, which is what you're looking for in a starting 11. That's not saying that barou is bad, and not at all. In fact, I think this spot can be a mix-up between literally every single one of those players, and it would make sense. It wouldn't be a throw if you included any one of these players. For this formation specifically though, it makes the most sense to put Chigiri on the left side, especially for the chemical reactions with the rest of our offense. Going over to our right wing, it's quite literally the same exact debate as the left. Every single player I mentioned except Chigiri can be put here. But on the right wing, I think it's just mandatory to have Bachara here. His dribbling, passes, and scoring capability, overall, he just cannot be beat. Honestly, I personally just want Bachara here so he can help more of our offense. But since you have both Rayo and Hiyori, you can kind of replace him with another scoring option like Nagi or barou. Again, any of them makes sense. You can literally put any of them here. I just think Bachara is a perfect fit as he can provide passes from the wings. If they need him to as well, just own the right side and bring the ball upfield with his dribbling, getting to the best passing spot, or even just scoring himself. Every single game of Barca, Bachara has scored, and with a team like Barca where Toya is your only help, he's a very good individual player. Now, moving on to our last two positions, we still have a lot of characters that can fill the rest of our offense. We're obviously missing Isagi and Rin, as well as Shido, barou, and even other characters like Kunigami or Nagi. And with 2 spots left for our starting 11, what position do you even choose for these characters? So let's go over every single character before we decide the final formation. Isagi, obviously our main character, scoring 4 goals in 2 games and provided so many assists, it's not even funny. One of the best overall NEL performances, and not even just looking at his goals and assists, just his impact on the game overall is something you just cannot miss. He evolves other players, gets the ball upfield, uses his metavision to stop plays. Like, how this guy has more defensive feats than the bastard defenders is crazy to me. The only complaint is that compared to other players like Rin, barou, Shido, or Nagi, they might have better weapons tuned to scoring. I don't need to sing the praises of Isagi. We all know how good he is. You just have to decide where you're gonna put him in your formation, either as an attacking midfielder or a center forward. Nagi is the next one I want to go over. Like I said earlier for the wings, even though he's on a downfall right now, he was still one of the best scoring options with insane traps. If he ever makes a comeback, a motivated, evolved Nagi can be such a huge threat. Genuinely, if we see him start to make moves towards his potential, he can be put up here like how he was in the U20. In Rin's case, although he is very individualistic to the point where he's pretty much disregarded PXG and went solo, that solo performance was just insane. Destroyer mode Rin is the most dominant solo performance we have ever seen, dribbling past and moving upfield by himself. I mean, this guy literally didn't score so that he can get a goal he wants. I guess the only argument against including Rin is the fact that he's too individualistic. During PXG, this sort of threw away some opportunities, like him going after Isagi or just not working with others. I think Rin is just the best overall player, so you can fit him in any single position and it would be fine. His impact on the game is just something you can't not include, since we've seen him score all the way to being on defense marking players like Isagi. I honestly don't even know how these forwards are defending, but it's whatever. Next up, we have Shido, the other part to PXG. Shido is one of the best pure strikers where if you can support him, get him in that box, he almost guarantees a goal. There isn't really much to say more about Shido. It's literally that. If you can get him in the box, he can score. I think overall, there is a few flaws with him. We don't see anything other than that. Maybe a few 1-2 and passes, that's all he can provide, but nothing that Isagi and Rin haven't done. And Barou is Uber's leader, tied with the highest goals in the NEL. So obviously he's a machine when it comes to scoring. If he has a team supporting him, there is a literal evidence that he can come out on top. His weapons are really tuned for offense, a chop dribble, and just insane shooting power. So now that we've gone over every single player and their pros and cons, the player and position I want to choose is Isagi in the center forward position. Now this just makes the most sense to me. Isagi has really beat the midfielder allegations and has proven that he can still score goals compared to these other geniuses. It doesn't matter if Rin, Shido, Nagi, or Barou have better weapons than him in scoring. At the end of the day, if you're scoring goals, that's what matters. And in the PXG game, we saw that Rin and Shido only scored 1 each, whereas Isagi scored 2 by himself. So there's literally evidence right there that he doesn't need an overpowered weapon to score. His utility is also something you can't pass up. He's such a valuable player besides scoring. We see him reading the field to create those scoring options, moving up and using other players, or just using his field reading to stop people from scoring. Isagi countered Rin's Destroyer mode. We see him blocking shots in other NEL matches as well. This kind of goes into strategies now, but Isagi also evolves everyone and brings out their top performances. You have his chemical reaction with Hiyori and Bachara. He can tag team defense with Raichi, and just so many other options that Isagi can use. I think this formation maximizes Isagi's plays, and he's proven that he's one of the most valuable players on the pitch. Now, Isagi was number 10 out of 11, which means we have one more player to round off our starting 11. You can really include Barou, Shido, or Rin in this position. All of them are equally good in scoring, which is what we need, but I think I'm gonna put Rin as our last player in the center forward position as well. Rin is tied for the number 1 for a reason, the best individual performance in the Neo Egoist League, and we can expect him to do that during the World Cup as well. Tied for the most goals in the NEL, his scoring options are just insane. You have both Water Rin and Destroyer mode Rin. Water Rin can work alongside his team better, and if that doesn't work, then you got Destroyer mode Rin, who is just Thanos. He will do it himself. Destroyer mode Rin during PXG was like a tornado you can't be saved from. How this guy managed to be all of Bastard and then run it back to score is just crazy to me. If this formation is ever stuck, you can literally have Destroyer mode Rin just go crazy by himself as a last-ditch effort. Besides his Destroyer mode, his character in general is just so good at everything. We see him defending, moving the ball upfield. This flexibility is something that is needed in this formation. In terms of chemical reactions as well, you have Isagi in the center forward position, and they can work well together, constantly evolving one another. This team really doesn't need any more offensive options when you have Isagi and Rin as the forwards. It's meant to optimize their plays. You have Chigiri and Bachara on the wings to help the ball get up for them. Hiyori and Ryo as midfielders, having the two of them can create more opportunities for them to receive passes and just get the ball, as well as Ryo can literally copy Itoshi Sai for Rin. The duo of Isagi and Rin is just so good as well. You have the number 1 talented learner and the number 1 genius. This also makes sense plot-wise because Kaneshiro literally made them tied in salary. salaries. All right, so wrapping it up, this is our final formation. Gagamaru as a goalkeeper to not throw the game, Raichi, Aryu, and Aiku as center backs to stop any plays, Harasu as a defensive midfielder to use his metavision to help on defense, and if he ever needs to, connect in the attack, Hiyori and Reo as midfielders to maximize the scoring options and also get the ball upfield, Chigiri and Bachira on the wings to provide support with their insane weapons, as well as they can spark chemical reactions with Isagi and Rin in their center forward positions. Personally, this is the starting 11 I would have. I think this is a perfect mix of a very strong defense, amazing attacking options, and chemical reactions. I know we may not have one solidified starting 11, but it's always fun to talk about. Let me know your thoughts on my picks or what your starting 11 would be, and while you're down there, you might as well hit the subscribe button. We are on the road to 100k, which is crazy to me, so any support would help. If you made it to the end though, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see y'all in the next one.